Aloha mai kako. I'm Jonathan Masaki, and I'm very honored to be here for our first episode of the Rally Point. And our very, very first guest is someone that we know very well in the state of Hawaii. He is the one that's in charge of the Hawaii National Guard, and you have many other responsibilities. So first of all, welcome Major General Stephen Logan.
Hey, thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for having me today.
I know you have a busy schedule, so we're very honored that you are here today. The first question off the bat, sir, I know the Guard has two specific different missions. Can you tell us what those missions are and how your soldiers and airmen and other personnel are involved?
Sure, I can. Thanks a lot for having me again. Really appreciate the time that you've afforded us. The National Guard is pretty unique. We have two separate missions. One is a federal mission by which we train to federal standards to defend the United States of America and can be called upon by the President of the United States to respond in time of conflict or need. But being the National Guard, we also are accessible by the state governors or the territory governors, depending on which location we are. Most recently, we activated soldiers and airmen for the severe weather that we experienced over the weekend. The governor was able to issue an emergency proclamation. We were able to posture in all 4 of our counties to be more responsive should that bad weather had been, a little bit more impactful. Mm-hmm. And what's unique is our soldiers and airmen just volunteered, even though it was a heavy weekend for either the Super Bowl or the Olympics or other family-related activities that they might have been involved in. They came out. A little-known fact is the National Guard is approaching its 390th year. So we were established in 1636. And in this December, we'll be able to celebrate that 390th year. So we were established as part of a militia prior to the establishment of the United States of America. We've been called upon here in the state of Hawaii for a variety of different, natural disasters and emergencies. In 2018, the Kilauea lava flow. Of course, in 2023, most recently, we had the wildfires throughout the state, but mostly prevalent on the island of Maui. And then throughout last year, we were able to activate aviation crews in an operation called Ho'opaula, which translates to extinguish fire. Mm-hmm. And because they were postured a little bit more appropriately, and we had folks that were ready to go, if the counties needed it, we were able to drop close to 300,000 gallons of water on various fires, either on Oahu, Maui, or on the Big Island of Hawaii.
So it's very obvious that the Guard soldiers and personnel, airmen, are very, very busy. I have to ask you this, the situation that happened, like in, let's say, Minnesota, you said that the president is one that can call you also up into a federal mission. Would something like that also could happen to the Hawaii Guard where you get activated for that type of response?
I would say it's a very remote possibility. And let me just give you a historical context that last year, the President of the United States did involuntarily activate members of the National Guard out of California for some civil unrest that occurred in Los Angeles. That was challenged when he tried to move it into Portland and places like Chicago at various levels of the federal judiciary system, ultimately culminating in the Supreme Court. In December of this year, the Supreme Court ruled that it was probably not a proper use of the National Guard for Chicago. Prior to that, the National Guard Bureau has issued a warning order to activate up to 5,000 soldiers or airmen in the event that it was needed for support to law enforcement. This would be in what we call United States Code Title 32 status, which is a unique status that requires the governors to agree to the activation. So with governor's consent, we could be seen maybe into the future to be activated for that. You can see this resident right now in Washington, D.C., about 11 states participating in support to local law enforcement with the consent of their own governors. It's also prevalent in Louisiana and in some other areas throughout the country. For the state of Hawaii, Governor Green has made it really clear as he appointed me as the 21st Adjutant General that he wants me to focus on building readiness for both mission sets. Absolutely. The federal mission to defend the nation and our state mission to be able to defend the state of Hawaii in case we have emergencies or disasters, either natural or non-natural. And so we have not been asked to support any agencies so far. We would be responsive to any of the county, either their police forces or we do have a state Department of Law Enforcement. And should that come up, I would have a conversation with the governor, and we would ultimately the decision would be his.
You know, the Guard has a unique place in Hawaii because you have all the active components here too that interfaces with each other for specific missions. What is that interaction like with you talking to, let's say, the Pacific Army commander or the Schofield Barracks commander or the Space Force commander? What's that engagement like with the active duty counterparts?
My job as Adjutant General for the state of Hawaii is pretty unique, and you described it outright. We have the Combatant Command Headquarters in the form of U.S. Indo-PACOM. We have all the service components for the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, and also the 14th Coast Guard District. I'm really fortunate in that they're really close, about 20 minutes away.
Sure.
I get called to participate in their commander's update briefs on a weekly basis. They share all their information with us, and we co-participate in exercises that help us to hone our skill sets for the Homeland Defense mission that we might be called upon to do here, should there be crisis or conflict experience within the Indo-Pacific. So a pretty unique relationship. The Hawaii National Guard itself is comprised of the Army and Air National Guard. We don't have Marines, we don't have naval forces. And so we work very closely with United States Army Pacific and the Pacific Air Forces, and we participate in their commanders' conferences. We train together habitually. And because I've been here in the Hawaii National Guard for so long, many of us have come up through the ranks. So I have a personal relationship with the 25th Division Commander, with many of the other forces that are here, and it lends itself to a more cohesive, cooperative relationship that we have and maintain.
Well, that's good to know that because there's so many things that do go on a daily basis in Hawaii that the military is called upon. And so when we think about let's say the Hawaii Army National Guard first, what are its major components and what do you see as its moving forward mission as we approach, another decade of things happening?
We have a really good balance within the Hawaii Army National Guard. We have the 29th Infantry Brigade Combat Team. It's our largest combat force in the state. It is going through an evolution along with the rest of the Army to become what they call a mobile brigade combat team. It'll have different types of equipment and different capabilities, and it's arrayed throughout most of the islands so that we have an immediate response capability and we can recruit Hawaii's talent from within the community. We also have a plethora of rotor wing and fixed wing aircraft on the Army side. It enables us to move throughout the archipelagic region and be able to be more responsive to the communities should they experience a time of need. And then we also have a regional training institute out in Waimanalo. They sometimes call themselves the Harvard of the Pacific, but they take care of all the officer, warrant officer, non-commissioned officer training, and also our training pipeline so that people interested in joining the National Guard can then go through some preliminary training before they ship off to their basic combat training. We also have a medical detachment, which has all facets of medical care, practitioners, dental, either hygienists or practitioners, behavioral health specialists, which specialize in our own health of the force, health of our soldiers, but also can be activated in time of need. And we have some additional medical capabilities.
Now, jumping to the blue side of the camp, tell me about the Air National Guard as major components and what their mission is.
Just as dynamic as the Army side and really relevant to the state of Hawaii. We have a very large, what we call wing. It's the 154th wing, and it's the most complex, largest wing within the Air National Guard construct. It's the only one that I know of that has 3 what we call MDSs, or Mission Design Series aircraft. We have the 5th generation fighter, the F-22. We have the C-17 Globemaster, and then we also have the KC-135 Aero refueling tanker. Now, some of these assets are shared within PACAF forces. So we have what we call a total force integration relationship between the active component and the reserve component. On the F-22 side, we're the lead, and we have some supplemental either maintainers or pilots that are that assist with that mission set. For the tanker side, the Hawaii Air National Guard runs that outright. And for the KC-17, the C-17 Globemaster, we actually supplement an active duty squadron to be able to operate those aircraft. You might have seen them in the news at the beginning of last year.
Yes.
After the horrific, fireworks incident that we had. We were able to assist and participate with that unit to evacuate some of the more severe burn patients to better care facilities within the state of Arizona.
Okay.
To assist with all of this, we also have the 201st Air Operations Group, and we also have an air defense group. Unique to the air defense group is they operate, maintain, and they scan the radar systems that protect the skies over our state. And we also have fifth generation fighters manned by your Hawaii Air National Guard airmen 24/7, ready to go. And if some other type of adversary aircraft tries to penetrate our airspace, they go and intercept and chase them out. And they've done that on several different occasions with some aircraft that were coming in from the north, flown by Russia.
Well, I guess because we're strategically where we're located, it's such a pivotal area where we need to be protected and be having that vigilance with your personnel. When it comes to your numbers, when you think of the challenges of having or retaining, those local men and women that serve, what are the challenges, or what are you seeing in getting soldiers and airmen into the ranks of the Air and the Army National Guard?
It's always a constant challenge. It's always a moving number. Every time you recruit soldiers and airmen in, there's an outflux of folks that are either retiring, they're moving to the mainland, or they're choosing to get out because of challenges with their civilian jobs, right? On the Army side, I'll have to report a success story. We are currently at 100% of our force structure allowance. It hasn't been that way, historically, but we're there now and on a trajectory to exceed that, which is where we want to be. We want to have an overage of personnel. On the air side, we're a little bit short. We're about 93%. All told together, we comprise about 5,600 Army soldiers and Air National Guard airmen. What I can promise you is that we have a variety of technical and tactical specialties that people who are interested in joining the organization can get into. And if you're really interested to serve your nation, your state, your community, we have a position on the team for you, and I think you'll find it quite exciting. One of the challenges that we find is that Hawaii, the economy is such that it requires folks to have a high earning wage, and so you'll have some conflict with a civilian job as you move up, as you start to get more responsibility. But what we like to say is it's a symbiotic career. So you're going to get technical and leadership training within your military formation or your unit that you're training with that can be applicable to your civilian employer. It also is not a bad part-time job. There's a lot of benefits to it. For the parents out there, there's a lot of educational benefits if some of your children are looking at attending the university or any other advanced education. And some of the job sets will then lend itself to finding a civilian career. We have a public affairs detachment, by the way, which becoming qualified in that specialty affords you the opportunity to get a job within the broadcasting industry that we have here. But anything, ground surface mechanic, computer skill sets, communicative skill sets, aviation, either flying or skill sets, lend itself to a civilian job, a successful civilian job here. Many of our pilots on the air side fly for Hawaiian Alaska, United, some of the main airlines. Most of our rotor wing pilots, most of the pilots that fly for the Honolulu Police Department, the Honolulu Fire Department, were also trained and made ready through their affiliation with the National Guard. So we think we're a very tight community-based organization. We offer a lot of opportunity for people who are interested in, and I think it complements well into a career field, on the civilian side.
I have to attest to that, sir. I actually went to the Army Broadcasting School and went to the 117th Mobile Public Affairs Detachment, and it launched me into my broadcast career. So even as specialized as broadcast journalism is, the school, DINFOS, as broadcast and print. So we'll get into specialties more when we take a real quick break right now, and we'll be back with the Adjutant General of the Hawaii National Guard, Major General Logan, as we get back after this commercial break.
From the moment you wake up.
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live.
We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahia.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahia for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed?
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
First alert traffic is like always having a helpful passenger right next to you.
There's a crash up ahead in the left lane.
When we see a backup, we'll tell you live on TV.
That doesn't look too good.
And send an alert to your phone.
I'll type, you drive.
First alert traffic on TV, streaming, and on the Hawaii News Now app.
Keeping you and your ohana safe.
Well, we're back here on the Rally Point. Thanks for joining us. Again, my first guest for this wonderful episode is Major General Logan, who is the National Guard Adjutant General of Hawaii. So, what some people are going to very clearly remember is the Guard's involvement after those devastating fires happened on Maui. It was a very dark time for everyone because of so many losses that took place. But at the same time, it really encouraged everybody to work together. And I know that you worked hand in hand with so many different agencies. Tell us about what that experience was like, because I imagine some of it was learning as you go because there were so many things involved.
Oh, definitely. So just to kind of back up a little bit, just prior to the fires that occurred in August of 2023, the 29th Brigade, the unit that I mentioned, previously, had gone through an arduous, 2-year train up for a combat training center rotation in the Joint Readiness Training Center in Louisiana.
Right.
Most of our equipment was either on a rail or being cross-loaded onto a boat to come back to Hawaii. And within a week of coming back, unfortunately, that tragedy occurred, most specifically either upcountry or in Lahaina. So we had to rapidly ask a lot of our soldiers and our airmen to rapidly volunteer to respond to assist the county of Maui. Luckily, I wasn't the adjutant general back then, but the adjutant general that we had, Major General Hara, had a program where we would visit all the counties twice a year. We would meet with the county mayors, their emergency management agency administrators, the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, their ambulance drivers, and some other folks. So by the time we were called upon to respond to Maui, we had a healthy relationship with Mayor Bisson and his fire and police chiefs. I'm a retired police officer myself, so it allowed me to interface very easily with Chief Pelletier and his Maui police forces. We got over there within a few days, activated a lot of National Guard soldiers. Through the Secretary of Defense, we were able to establish what we call a dual status command construct. It's only been done 4 times within the history of the state of Hawaii, and this is the most recent time. We stood up a joint task force comprising National Guard soldiers and airmen, and also active component forces, because much of our equipment had been left back on the mainland. The most immediate need at that time was to secure the impact zone so that the forces could go in there and recover the remains of the decedents. Of course, first priority was to look for any kind of survivors.
Right.
That had already been completed. And now it was to methodically go through and recover the persons who had succumbed to the fires themselves. FEMA brought in a lot of teams, a lot of dogs. We also have a fatality search and recovery team within the Hawaii National Guard. We activated them, and they worked hand in hand. So I rapidly brought over a lot of security forces. We were able to secure the impact zone. And what that did is it allowed the Maui Police Department to go about their business, because the regular requirements from a police force still occur. There's still traffic accidents. Unfortunately, there's still crime that goes on.
Right.
And they don't grow in numbers when the emergency occurs. Once that happened, the mayor was afforded the opportunity to open up the Lahaina Bypass Road, which then allowed goods and services to freely flow to what was isolated areas in the past. And it basically decompressed some of the humanitarian crisis that had occurred areas outside of Lahaina. And I had people out there 24/7. My sergeant major and I would go out at night, and we would go and visit with some of the soldiers and airmen that were manning these control points. And I'd ask them, "Hey, weren't you at JRTC? Didn't you just come out of
right,
like 2 years
yeah.
of this intense training?" And they said, "Yes, sir, but I have to be here. Lahaina was calling me. My mom said I had to be here." In one case, an individual said that my wife ordered me to come here to respond. And let me just be clear. We had immediate response from almost all of our active duty and part-time Maui-based our Army and Air National Guard soldiers and airmen that were down there the night of the evacuations as they were occurring. So it's although it is a tragedy, and they are in the throes of recovery right now with the complex debris removal being completed already, and hopefully some of the insurance payments going out so that the rebuild can continue. It is honestly an example for how your National Guard, your state, your county agencies can all come together to a isolated community within the time of need.
You know, I guess that's the ultimate community-based organization is what the Guard Soldiers and Airmen do. And that's a state mission that you just specified as to the importance of what the Hawaii-based Soldiers and Airmen do. On the federal side, as the global war on terrorism kicked off in 2001, so many Guard members were activated, and I suspect you obviously have been activated many times as well. Tell me what that period was also like and how that also shapes what goes on for the future when it comes to readiness on the air and Army side.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the word readiness. My whole career, we've been charged with building readiness for whatever type of unit that you're associated with. We try to focus on building readiness for the federal mission. If you're an aviation unit, you have to be able to do what we would call an air assault mission under day, night, and all-weather conditions in order to move troops or material throughout the battlefield. If you're a fighter unit in the Air National Guard, you have to be able to conduct those types of operations in all weather. A lot of people ask me, they say, hey, you know, you're telling me to focus on readiness, but readiness, ready for what? And I have to tell you, out here in the Indo-Pacific, within the state of Hawaii, it's ready for anything. Mm-hmm. You know, we have, on the natural side, volcanic activity, right? We're susceptible to tsunamis. Obviously, hurricanes, wildfire, pandemic now is basically on our radar scope. A variety of natural events, but there's also non-natural events that can occur. There are cyber attacks that occur on a regular basis, right. Either private groups or state actors who are adversarial to the United States of America. And then on the federal side, there are a lot of conflict or friction points that are throughout the world. You look at Venezuela, kind of most recently, you look in the Middle East, you look in Iran, you look in Ukraine, an ongoing conflict, but also out in the Indo-Pacific, there are areas that historically are now experiencing a lot of friction points. And so we have to be ready for just about anything. During the global war on terror, mm-hmm. we had to accelerate all that. And as you may or may not know, we are a very large part-time force and a small full-time footprint. So we're very economical, to be honest, because we don't pay our soldiers and airmen on a 24/7 basis. Right. We're probably about 20% or 25% full-time in some capacity, 75% part-time with another career on the outside, a family, or going to school. And so in order to meet the pre-deployment requirements of that global war on terror era, and it was back-to-back deployments for some of our units, at least one of our aviation units went a total of 4 times, 1 to Iraq and 3 times to Afghanistan, and some of them went all 4 times. And there were long lead times at some of the mobilization stations. So if you can imagine a soldier who works in the back of an aircraft, who has been away from his family or her family, whose children have grown up maybe a year and a half, another year, and another year without their primary parent being present. I often quote Winston Churchill when I say that never have so many owed so much to so few. But as we've seen within the world, most of those hot spots have now diminished out. So what we really have to do right now is to be prepared for the future. And it ties right back into that key word that you said, which is we have to consistently and constantly focus all of our efforts, our material, our money, and most importantly, the precious time that we have with our soldiers and airmen on building that level of readiness. The uniqueness of the National Guard is a lot of the federal readiness that we grow and we maintain can be applicable to any of those natural disasters within our state that I previously described.
You know, since we're on this topic, I would have to ask this question because to remain ready, you also need to train. And certainly one of the hot topics right now is the land lease situation that, you know, there are sensitivities with the Hawaiian culture, with Native Hawaiians and, you know, people who live in Hawaii. Where is the balance there? What is your discussion on how do you remain ready, but also really recognizing those cultural sensitivities that exist?
Yeah, it's a really important question. I did talk about some of the uncertainty that's going on within the rest of the world, the requirement for us to remain ready. And unfortunately, some of the missions that we had, the only way to be ready is to really go out and do it. And we have to kind of mix a land component force with some maneuver training, with some either direct or indirect live fire training. You can't simulate it in a room, you can't do it on a computer board, and you can't experience it for the first time when you're actually in a combat situation. The United States itself, right now, we have competitors that could be out there that have the same capabilities that we have. They're training to the same level that we are. We don't really have overmatch or advantage over all of them right now. And so we have to make sure that all of our soldiers and airmen assigned to the Hawaii National Guard are as ready as possible. We partner a lot with our active component forces, right? So on the Pacific Air Force's side, we're consistently flying side by side. We're consistently operating together and participating in exercises either here locally or in a variety of different countries. In fact, this year alone, they're going to be traveling to the mainland. They're going to be traveling to New Zealand. They're going to be traveling to other parts to participate hand in hand. On the Army side, we have the 25th Division up at Schofield Barracks. We try to integrate as much as possible to work with them, and sometimes it does require us to train at the Poakaloa training area. What I do find, however, is that because most of our soldiers and airmen have grown up in Hawaii, they have a deep respect for the land and the culture and everything else. I wish there was another way to get after building this readiness, but I think that we found an appropriate balance by which we can move forward together. There are, speaking specifically of Poakaloa, the governor is working with the Department of the Army, the Secretary of the Army. There is a committee that's been established. Right. We work with a variety of different groups, the Military Assistance Council, the Military and Community Relations Office, and we try to find that common ground. We try to find that neutral point to where we can effectively meet our training goals and yet still be respectful to the land and the community.
And that's an important part of just being good neighbors to, whoever is on the island that you are working and training at. I want to go back again to the specialty fields because, I was a benefactor of a specialty field in my Army training. You just addressed parents because parents also need to buy into sending their young men and women off to basic training and getting their specialty skills. What is out there that perhaps is the best kept secret that the Army, the Air Force offers that maybe the public doesn't know about?
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. I'll start on the Air Force side. It wasn't until I became the Adjutant General that I became really intimate and knowledgeable with what the Hawaii Air National Guard brings to the fight. But I talked about the type of aircraft that they have. For each pilot that operates one of those airframes, there's upwards of 30 support technicians that assist with that. They're either maintenance technicians for basic maintenance, component repair for the engines, the major component groups. In the case of the fifth generation fighter, there's specialty groups that help with the type of covering on the aircraft itself, so it maintains its capabilities. There's radar technicians, communicative technicians. There's medical practitioners on both the Army and the air side. Right. So if you're interested in becoming an EMT, let's say, or pursuing physician assistance or becoming a registered nurse, we can get your foot in the door with a lot of those other types of things. Cyber is a big thing now. It's computers and AI is only increasing in intensity and capability, and we have a lot of cyber structure too. We also have intelligence. We provide a lot of intelligence capabilities that augment what the active component forces have here. On the Army side, it's pretty similar. Although we have a lot of infantry, ground movement type of stuff with indirect fire, communication systems, sustainment and logistics, medical. We also have a large footprint of aviation. I have sent a lot of folks to flight school and taken them from a rather young age to now being pilots in command and being employed within some of the other aeronautical industries. But mechanics, engine mechanics, diagnostic folks. We have a plethora of medical capabilities there also. So I think it's honestly an open invitation to just about anybody. Come take a look at what we have. We probably have something that you're interested in. And what you'll find is your unit is going to look a lot like the high school graduation class that you had. It's going to be almost the same people, a lot of your neighbors. And there is the capability to have a symbiotic, congruent job on the outside. So like myself, I joined the National Guard at a rather young age, about 17 years old, and then I got into the Honolulu Police Department right afterwards. I became a helicopter pilot within the Hawaii Army National Guard. I became the relief pilot for the Honolulu Police Department, and I got to fly when those pilots were either unavailable or were on vacation or were traveling. And then, I developed leadership skills through the commission officer roles when I became a sergeant, subsequently a lieutenant in the Honolulu Police Department. I already had those leadership skills, so I feel that I was fairly effective there. So I think just about everybody has that same capability of being able to get after, number one, some initial training, be part of a unit, and then some augmentation to civilian education afterwards. So we have college programs at either the UH or the community campuses. Community college campuses. There's also applicability to some of the private universities we have here that you can get up to a 4-year degree. We have state programs that we're negotiating for right now that can also help augment and offset some of those costs. And then when you achieve all those skills, I think it makes you a little bit more marketable to some of the civilian employees that are out there because you're living by a certain code of conduct. You're physically fit. You get an annual physical. Our requirement is to be drug-free. And as you're moving up in your military career, you're becoming much more mature and marketable, like I said, within that civilian workforce. I'm hoping that we can display somewhat of the QR code or maybe some of the links to anybody who's interested, who's watching this, can explore more of what we have to offer. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, sir, we will definitely do that as we wrap up this interview. When we put it online again, we'll have those different links. I want to ask you one last question, and you addressed it very early in the interview today. With all that the Army and the Air does on the Guard side, you mentioned the behavioral health specialist. So mental health is a very important part of maintaining a ready force. So with that said, the behavioral health officers that you have in place, what is their role and why do you consider this important?
Oh, good question. One of our behavioral health officers that we have is also co-employed as the director of our Office of Veteran Services. As you might know, a lot of our Veteran Services counselors, there's some behavioral health needs that are there. When we did deploy into Maui, we deployed behavioral health specialists because what our fatality search and recovery team members were seeing was truly horrific. They were seeing the same thing that the FEMA and the firefighters that had come from the mainland were seeing. And so they just sometimes need somebody to talk to. We also co-mobilize part of our chaplain corps. Some people with religious affiliations feel more comfortable talking to a chaplain than a behavioral health specialist. But more importantly, it's going to happen at the end of the day when they're putting away their equipment. And so we cohabitated the behavioral health specialists with the people that were doing the more demanding jobs. Some of it doesn't manifest itself right away. And so it may take some time for somebody to come forward and say, hey, I think I experienced something and I might want to talk to a professional. So we have that capability, and they can do it at any of their drill assemblies. So I think it's in today's world with what we've asked our folks, our soldiers and our airmen to do, I think we owe it to them to be able to provide that capability and referral to follow-on services afterwards.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, sir, and I appreciate you being here. And to all the members of the Hawaii Army, Air, National Guard, and Civilian Force, we say mahalo to them too. As we wrap up, sir, is there anything else you want to add?
I have to say that the National Guard has been a very rewarding career for me. When I took this job, I talked about it being the organization of opportunity. As I stated, I started off as an E1, the lowest ranking person. I was probably the youngest at 17 years old. And through a series of years and just opportunity that was afforded me and probably a lot of luck, I was able to move up to now be at the top of the organization. And my overarching mission right now is to provide that same opportunity to each and every member of the state of Hawaii. If you're interested in joining, I welcome you now. I can guarantee you that you can achieve the goals that you may set for yourself within our organization. For those that are currently serving, I thank them all for their service. I am honored and somewhat humbled to be your adjutant general, and I promise to continue to provide those opportunities for you so that you can achieve everything that you set out to do within our units and our formations.
Well, sir, again, thank you very much for being with the very first guest on the Rally Point, and we thank you also for being here today for our very first episode. We invite you to join us every Wednesday at 12:30 as we meet with other military leaders and talk about what's going on with our forces here in Hawaii. I'm Jonathan Masaki. Ahui ho, malama pono. Until we meet again, take care.